1973 was a big year for you. Mm-hmm. Describe what happened during that time.
I'd been touring America for 3 years with Trapeze from 70 to 73, primarily just work in America, nowhere else in the world, just constantly. We actually lived in Dallas, Texas. And I'd seen Deep Purple, the guys in Deep Purple at my shows. I'd seen them at the Whiskey, and I'd seen them at the Bottom Line in New York, and I'd seen them at the Marquee in London. Each one individually would come and be looking at the bar going, you know, the way you do. You still do that?
Musicians playing for musicians.
So, you know, I just figured in my naivety that they were just checking, they liked the band, or they liked my pants or something. So, and lo and behold, there was some rumor going around that Ian Gillan was going to leave the band, and I just figured, I think they're going to ask me to join as the singer. And they flew me to New York where they were playing Madison Square Garden. Smoke on the Water was now like the biggest song on radio, and like they had the #1 record. And they had a board meeting with me the following morning, and they said, we'd like you to join the band. And I'm going, oh yeah, I get to sing in Deep Purple as a bass player? Are you having me on? Because I'm a singer. At this point, I'm a singer, and I figured, you know, but they said, well, we want to ask Paul Rodgers to be the singer, and we'd like you to take second vocals and play bass. I said, I'm in, because Paul Rodgers is and still is one of the greatest white singers in the world, and I just figured to actually ply my trade singing with another great singer would be really cool. But I said I'd join on the chance that I wouldn't just be able to sing the oohs and the ahs. So they said, no, you can sing some lead vocals. And Paul didn't join because he had started Bad Company. So we went about finding, we sorted through about 350 at the time. Remember those cassette tapes? We listened to about 350, and we came up with a fellow that sounded sort of the same bluesier North England sort of thing that Paul Rodgers had, and his name was David Coverdale. And we auditioned David. He was blind drunk, and he came in. I did a thing with him at the piano while the guys were taking lunch, and it was a kind of a vibrato, soulful thing, and I think it helped him get the gig. And I kind of feel responsible for pulling his pants down and showing his willy.
Nice.
Yeah.
How'd that work out for him?
Yeah, of course.
Right, he got the gig. Now, I know that you say you were 5 when you joined Deep Purple, because it's 73, that would have put you at 5 years old. But let's just pretend you were 21, okay? Let's just pretend.
He's told you now.
Now, I don't know if you guys can imagine it, but imagine being 21 years old and joining the biggest rock band in the world.
Whether you like it or not.
Whether you like it or not. What was that like? How did you deal with, I mean, I know Trapeze was playing the States and you guys had good success, but now we're talking from 0 to 60. How did you handle that?
My last tour with Trapeze, we were selling out 5,000 seaters in America. So I'd been building from 300 seat like clubs to 5,000 seaters in 3 years. So I'd been building this non-stop when I was very young. So when Purple came in for me to join, I knew that we were going to be playing, you know, soccer arenas around the world, and it was kind of like, I was kind of ready, without being sort of like arrogant, I think I was kind of ready for that, you know. I think there's a lot of young artists today, 21, 20, 19 years old, that are capable of playing soccer stadiums. And at that time, I was kind of like, yeah, I'm ready. I'm like, I've been doing this for 3 years every day in America, opening for the Stones or, you know, or whatever, or doing the, you know, the big bands I'd been playing with. And when they came in for me to join, remember now, I was being asked to sing as the second lead singer bass player. So for me, it was kind of like, oh, I get to sing kind of some stuff behind the lead singer. It was kind of like, it was a win-win situation. But for David, he'd never, ever, ever been on a stage before, ever. So here he is, a guy from the north of England, like, you know, talking like this at the time. Now he speaks like this, of course. But I love him to bits. So here we are on stage at the California Jam, 350,000 people. And what a moment that was, coming from that to that.
How did you reconcile coming from rock, soul, funk, R&B, that being your love,
To that.
to Deep Purple, which was a seminal hard rock band, not what one would think of when they think of funk?
Well, if you chaps and gals want to listen to anything from Deep Purple prior to when I came in, from 69 to 72, it was, Purple were pretty much in a box of like more of a hard rock, kind of a metal thing. And when I came in with David, we sort of changed the graphic into more of a bluesier, groovier, funkier thing, which, you know, it was a good thing and a bad thing. It was a blessing and a curse. But when two, like, God forbid, if like Jimmy Page and Robert Plant left Led Zeppelin, there would be nothing. And who would want to replace those guys? So here we are trying to replace two seminal figures in a rock band. So we didn't want to have two guys coming in sounding like, ah! Like all that stuff. So I just figured we'd come in and do something a little bit different.
Right.
So it was, you know, for me, funk is, I can't help myself. It's got to be funky. It's got to be soulful. It's got to be completely right from here.
So you basically came into the band going, cool, it's an established rock band, but there's also a bit of a blank slate. You can come in and kind of change things up a bit.
To come in and craft a two-lead singer thing. There was only one other band in the world doing it. That was Three Dog Night. It was like three guys instead of two. But we have, for anybody that's familiar with Mark III or 4 Deep Purple, there was two distinctive singers singing together and not against each other. We were actually singing for each other and actually listening to the things we were doing, and it was really, really cool.
You lasted 3 years, 3 albums, almost 4 world tours, and we're talking the grandiose time of rock. You even had your own plane, right, the Starship?
Ask me some questions.
The big ones. Well, let's talk about this.
Let's get to it.
Let's talk about 76. Let's talk about 76. The band?
Oh, God.
Yeah. The band ends. What happens to this group that ends almost at its peak?
Well, we blew up. Not like blew up today where everything gets blew up. It's great, but we blew up. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll, Chris, is the answer.
Right. 1977, you're out of Deep Purple.
We broke up in May of '76 for many, many reasons, but it really wasn't musical. I think I was partaking too in the fast lane, and I think we were all going different directions. And I think at 24 years old, although it's very young, there was so much more things I wanted to do in life, and I wanted to break away and do something a little bit more funky.
Okay, so you got back together for a moment with the guys from Trapeze.
I did in '76.
Mm-hmm. And you guys were working on a record which you ended up deciding to turn into your first solo album.
We started the record before the American tour. The American tour was a sellout, and it was a great to play with Mel and Dave. Mel Galley, that went on to play with Whitesnake, and Dave Holland, the drummer from Judas Priest, are the other guys in Trapeze, so if you know those names. We did a reunion tour in '76 where I was completely insane. I insisted on wearing only green vinyl and silk, and all the lights were green, and my eye makeup was green, and I went the first night, what the fuck's wrong with all this green? And yes, it was a stupid, stupid time for me. I was completely and utterly insane and not well. So that lasted for about 3 months.
And 15 years.
And 15 years.
And 15 years. So that is, you know, if you take a look at Glenn Hughes' website, there is a wealth of time missing, and he joked about it very candidly. It could be politely described to as a 15-year
hiatus.
It could be more accurately described as a lost weekend.
A coke binge.
Yeah. When did drugs? Told you we'd pull no punches.
Oh, what the hell? Crack. Did you ever smoke? No, just crack.
Right, he just likes to crack. When did drugs become a destructive force for you?
I think, without going into detail, I think I did a gig at the Astrodome remember the old Astrodome in Houston? I think you guys might know that. And we were headlining that show, and after the show, I was upstairs in this like private suite, and this guy came up to me with a 10-gallon hat and said, "Boy, have you ever tried cocaine?" I said, "My God, what's that?" He said, "Well, check this shit out." And he proceeded to blow some stuff up my nose. I told him my life story, sat on his lap, cried, laughed, giggled, freaked, twitched. And I said, "This shit is fucking great!" And I didn't sleep for 2 weeks. The band loved that. They loved the fact that I could keep great time on coke. No, it didn't get in my way at all.
Right.
Didn't hinder my career whatsoever.
Right.
Didn't have a heart attack. No heart attack for me.
You know what the funny thing is that a lot of people start drugs and they go, well, it's going to help me be creative musically, and actually it was completely the opposite.
No, I made a record. on drugs, and I can't listen to it. It's a great record. It's my first solo record called Play Me Out. I probably sell a lot of records now. But, you know, it's like I can't listen to it. I can't, there's a period of my life where I joke, before when I came on stage, I joked a few minutes ago, but there's a period between 76 and 91 where I was told I made a Black Sabbath record, I made a couple of soundtracks, I made a Hughes Thrall album. I don't really remember. I'm not making fun of it anymore because I don't, you know, allocate to sit here and talk about the grandiosity of what drug addiction does, because I've lost a lot of friends, and I'm sure we have people in this room today that have lost family members or even young people through the drugs. But drugs was probably the greatest gift that God has given me, is to remember what that did to me. Yeah, and I did go on a ridiculously, you know, between 76 and 91, I was AWOL, and it wasn't pretty. It's not a pretty thing. I can joke about it now because I've got a lot of time where I haven't been using and drinking, so that's the beauty of this thing. You know, I can actually tell you guys the story.
Well, besides the usual just say no kind of thing, what would you say to a young musician starting to get going in their career and then being introduced to drugs? What would you sort of say to him if you had a moment with him?
Let me be the whipping boy poster child for y'all. There is no winners in drugs, and there's no such thing as a, you know, there's just one before I go to bed. And no, it's no winners, and it's just I don't know any winners in our industry. We are so gifted and grateful to be musicians that there is nobody at the end of the road that has been a successful drug addict. It's not pretty. You can't understand a word anybody's saying, and I was just so tired of making so many promises to people I couldn't keep. There's a joke there.
It seemed to me that there was one guy, 1986, who you didn't alienate, who came to you and said, let's do a record together.
Is he here? This is your life?
Yeah, he's... Who was that?
86? I better get this right. Was it Tony Iommi?
It was. Describe that time when Tony Iommi came to you and said, let's do a record together.
You know, Ozzy had left the band, and I grew up with these guys. Ozzy, they're all really good friends of mine since we were at school. And when Dio left the band, Tony was going to do a solo record, and he called me up, and he called Rob Halford, and I got to sing the whole record because I'm a pig, and I wanted to do it all. So I got to do the record with Tony called 7 Star. It's an album that you probably don't know about. It's a Black Sabbath record, which really wasn't supposed to be called Black Sabbath. It's a record that Tony wanted to be solo. I got to sing some stuff on the record which is unlike kind of a demonic thing, so it was kind of somewhat different. But Warner Brothers, God bless them, thought it was a good idea to call the band Black Sabbath to draw in as many of the old fans as possible. But it wasn't Black Sabbath, and it was something entirely different. So, but Tony was and still is one of my closest and very, very private, personal friends. He's a really good man. But we made an album called 7 Star, and I think it's still, people still talk about that as being a good record. So.
I think it's amazing that you went in thinking, okay, I'm going to be with my buddy and we're going to make a solo record. And now, technically, you're also a member of Black Sabbath. It
wasn't pretty, because now I'm being asked if I would put the bass down. And for anybody that's been asked to put their instrument down and sing lead vocals, I don't care. You've seen Sting do it. We've seen Paul McCartney. It doesn't, for number one, it doesn't look right. And it's kind of like, what do I do with my hands? And so, you know, it's kind of weird. And I was getting loaded at the time. And I remember doing a gig in Detroit at the Cobo Hall. And 18,000 teenage men, boys, with black fingernails pointing at me. And I forgot the words to War Pigs. It was not pretty. And that was the end of me. They shoved the plane ticket on my nose and said, see ya.